Ramana, shining as the Self in all beings. By the immense grace of the Self manifest as Ramana, we begin today's Satsang with a prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, followed by the chanting of Muktaka trayam by Sri Nandakumarji.
Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Shuklam Bharadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarvavangmayam Aharyam Chandrataradi Tam Namas Satvikam Shivam Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Ekam Aksharam Nirantaram Bhasate Swayam Likyate Katham Hridaya Kubara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Naham Maham Iti Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hrudi Vishamanasa Swam Chindvata Majjada Bhavana Chalana Rudha Atmanishto Bhavatvam Deham Brahmayam Jadatmakam Aham Buddhirnatasyastitu Naham Tattata Bhavashukti Samay Siddhatma Sadbhavata Koham Bhavayuta Uto Varakiya Drishtatmanishtatmana Soham Spurtitaya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam Soham Spurtitaya Aruna Shivah. Vibhati Swayam. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We now have the chanting of Upadesa Saram verses by Uma-Ashwini and Ashtottara.
Namo Ramana. Idamaham pada vikyamanvaham ahamileenake pelaya sattaya vigrahendriya pranaditama nahamekasat tajjadam yasat satvabhasika chitvavetara sattaya hichet chittaya yaham Isha jivayor vesha jivida satsvabhavato vastu kevalam veshahanata swapadarsanam Isha darshanam swatmarupata atma samstiti swatmadarshanam atmanidvaya datmanishkata ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरम् किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा अपूर्णचित्सुखम् बन्धमुख्यतीर्थं परं सुखम् विन्दति जीवस्तु दैविक अहमपेतकम् निज विभानकम् महदिदं तपो रमणभाग्यम् नमो रमण
Namo Ramana. We have Ramananjali music. The first offering will be by Srimati Radha, accompanied by Vaibhav, and the second one by Srimati Pratibha Sundaresh.
Namo Ramana all. Today we will be presenting a song written by Sri Siddhananda Bharati. The music is by Sri L. Krishna. Ramana Nama Padi Ten Tendra Kunja Ramana Nama Padi Ten Tendra Kunja Tenarvi Solai Vala Tendral Kunja Tenarvi Solai Vala Tendral Kunja Ramana Nama Padi Ten Tendral Kunja Ramana Nama Padi Ten Tendral Kunja Tenarvi Solai Vala Tendral Kunja Tenarvi Solai Vala Tendral Kunja செந்தமிழின் இசை கொஞ்சம் திருக்கள் கொஞ்சம் செந்தமிழின் இசை கொஞ்சம் திருக்கள் கொஞ்சம் வானமுதச் சுவை வந்து வாழ்வீர் கொஞ்சம் வானமுதச் சுவை வந்து வாழ்வீர் கொஞ்சம் வானமுதச் சுவை வந்து வாழ்வீர் கொஞ்சம் ரமண நாம பாடி தென் தென்ற கொஞ்சம் தேனருவி சோலை வள தென்றல் கொஞ்சம் மனமெல்லாம் சுத்தான்ம வளமை கொஞ்ச மனமெல்லாம் சுத்தான்ம வளமை கொஞ்ச ஞான ஒளி சித்தத்தை நயந்து கொஞ்ச ஞான ஒளி சித்தத்தை நயந்து கொஞ்ச ஞான ஒளி சித்தத்தை நயந்து கொஞ்ச ரமண நாம பாடி தென் தென்ற கொஞ்ச கொஞ்ச தேனருவி சோலை வள தென்றல் கொஞ்ச ரமண நாம பாடி தென்றல் கொஞ்ச ஞானமெல்லாம் சமயோக நலமே கொஞ்ச ஞானமெல்லாம் சமயோக நலமே கொஞ்ச ஆனந்த புது உலகில் அன்பு கொஞ்ச ஆனந்த புது உலகில் அன்பு கொஞ்ச ஆனந்த புது உலகில் அன்பு கொஞ்ச ரமண நாம பாடி தென்றல் கொஞ்ச தேனருவி சோலை வள தென்றல் கொஞ்ச ரமண நாம பாடி தென்றல் கொஞ்ச தேனருவி சோலை வள தென்றல் கொஞ்ச ரமண நாம பாடி தென்றல் கொஞ்ச ரமண நாம பாடி தென்றல் கொஞ்ச ரமண நாம பாடி தென்றல் கொஞ்ச நமோ ரமணா.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. This is a Hindi translation of Sri Vasishtha Ganapati Muni's composition by Dr. Sarada Natarajan, and the music is set by Sri H.K. Narayan. अरुणाचल में अवतार लिए करुणा निधि के गुण गाओ, मानवता को ढसी भयानक माया से छुटकारा पाओ। अरुणाचल में अवतार लिए करुणा निधि के गुण गाओ, मानवता को ढसी भयानक माया से छुटकारा पाओ। अरुणाचल में अवतार लिए करुणा निधि के गुण गाओ, नदी का शीतल निर्मल धार में तेरा ही पावन मन है, तेरा ही पावन मन है। कोयलिया का कोमल सुर में तेरा ही अमृत धुन है, तेरा ही अमृत धुन है। किले आम के वाटिकाएं तेरी करुणा के दर्पण है, तेरी करुणा के दर्पण है। आत्मरूपी श्री रमण की महिमा, आत्मरूपी श्री रमण की महिमा गाता धरा का कण कण है, गाता जन जन जीवन है, अति पावन ये गुण गायन है। अरुणाचल में अवतार लिए करुणा निधि के गुण गाओ, मानवता को ढसी भयानक माया से छुटकारा पाओ। अरुणाचल में अवतार लिए करुणा निधि के गुण गाओ, योग जीवन के उच्च शिखर पर खड़े खड़े मुस्काते हो, खड़े खड़े मुस्काते हो। त्याग किए ममता की भावना चराचरों में व्यापक हो, चराचरों में व्यापक हो। अहंकार की सीमा पार के बैरागी कहलाते हो, बैरागी कहलाते हो। तोड़ दो बंधन ज्ञान कटार ले, तोड़ दो बंधन ज्ञान कटार ले। दीन को अमृत में कर दो, अमृत नस नस में भर 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 दो। नमो रमण।
Namo Ramana. The next offering of Ramananjali Sangeeta is by Revathi Shankar.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We are meditating on the 28th verse of Saddarshanam. कूपे यथा गाढजले ततान्तः निमज्य बुद्ध्याशितया नितान्तं प्राणं च वाचं च नियम्य चिन्वन् विन्देन्निजाहङ्कृतिमूलरूपम्. Discover the real source of the ego by exploring within with keen intellect, by regulating breath, speech, and mind, as one would do to recover a thing which has fallen into a deep well. When we are angry or excited, our breath goes faster. So Bhagavan says, Vayurodhana liyate mana. By regulating the breath, mind subsides. So when the mind subsides, it is easier to dip into the self. When there are waves and waves of thoughts, we have to struggle to go within. But by controlling the breath, we will be able to cut off the waves of thoughts and dive deep within to the self. I'll be presenting a song by Sadhvom Swami, Kannada translation by J.H.P. Acharya, music by Sri Ilayaraja. ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ, ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ, ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ, ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ, ಜ್ಞಾನವ ಪಡೆಯ ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹೋದರೆ ಸುಜ್ಞಾನವ ಪಡೆಯಲು, ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹೋದರೆ ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ರಮಣ, ನಾನಾರೆಂಬುದು ಹುಡುಕುವ ಮುನ್ನೆ ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀ ತುಂಬಿದೆ ಜ್ಞಾನೇಶ್ವರ, ನಾನಾರೆಂಬುದು ತಿಳಿಯುವ ಮುನ್ನೆ ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀ ತುಂಬಿದೆ ಜ್ಞಾನೇಶ್ವರ, ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ, ಜ್ಞಾನವ ಪಡೆಯಲು ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹೋದರೆ ಸುಜ್ಞಾನವ ಪಡೆಯಲು, ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹೋದರೆ ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ರಮಣ. ದಯೆಯಿಂದ ಎನ್ನ ಕಾಯುವ ಗುರುವೇ ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಬೇರೆ ನಾ ಕಾಣೆ, ದಯೆಯಿಂದ ಎನ್ನ ಕಾಯುವ ಗುರುವೇ ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಬೇರೆ ನಾ ಕಾಣೆ, ಕರುಣೆಯ ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ರಮಣೇಶ ಶಿವ ದಯಾ ಸಮುದ್ರ ದಾಸನ ಮಾಡಿದೆ, ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ, ಜ್ಞಾನವ ಪಡೆಯಲು ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹೋದರೆ ಸುಜ್ಞಾನವ ಪಡೆಯಲು, ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹೋದರೆ ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ರಮಣ. ಮನಸ್ಸಿಲ್ಲದ ಸದ್ಗತಿ ಪಡೆಯಲು ನನಗೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯವೇ ಅದು ಆಗದು, ಮನಸ್ಸಿಲ್ಲದ ಸದ್ಗತಿ ಪಡೆಯಲು ನನಗೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯವೇ ಅದು ಆಗದು, ಬೇಡುವ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನದೆಯೇ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಶ್ರಮವಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಸಾಧಿಸುವೆ. ಬೇಡುವೆ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ದಯೆ ಇದ್ದರೆ, ಶ್ರಮವಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಸದ್ಗತಿ ಸಾಧಿಸುವೆ. ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ನೀನೇ ರಮಣ, ಜ್ಞಾನವ ಪಡೆಯಲು ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹೋದರೆ, ಸುಜ್ಞಾನವ ಪಡೆಯಲು ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹೋದರೆ. ನಾನೆಂಬ ಸತ್ಯ ರಮಣ. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. We now have the reading and the sharing by Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this the book reading segment of our Satsang, we continue to read from Fresh Discoveries, Western Seekers on Sri Ramana Maharshi, a compilation by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We have been going through the account of Monica Bose on her mother primarily. Her mother's name is Suzanne. The account is about Suzanne, but then it expands into the account of Monica Bose and her grandmother also. That is Suzanne's mother, Jean. In the first reading, first 2 weeks back, it was primarily about the journey of Suzanne, who is a doctor, an MD with post-MD qualifications also. Her journey to Ramanashramam and her taking residence, and primarily the beautiful account all through has been multifaceted, to say the least. It is the journey of 3 ladies, at least so far, but the account is about cultural variety and cultural pointers to spirituality, architectural pointers to spirituality, then the women's emancipation, the feeling of great indignity or indignation that she feels, Suzanne feels when she is asked to leave at 6:30 from the ashram, and she runs up the hill and stays in a cave, and there her fight on behalf of the entire women community is blessed by Arunachala in the form of a darshan, where she has a vision of Arunachala as a hill of fire, and she goes inside that hill, which is filled with siddhas who are unaffected by that fire, and so is she. And that vision cools her down, and she resumes her journey in Bhagavan. And the second week, we could see the account of Monica Bose herself, that is the daughter of Suzanne, and her grandmother having to leave London, England, in grave circumstances of the Second World War, and they escape bombs, severe destruction. In matter of days or hours, they board the ship and come down to India, and how Monica Bose has to be placed in the hostel in Bangalore, and the grandmother feels despondent that she is not going to have any role, and how Bhagavan helps her out by saying, go back to your religion, go back to the roots of your religion and find your worth, your goal in that, and give meaning to your life. Taking care of your granddaughter is not the goal of your life. Go back to your religion, Bhagavan says. And from there, we moved on to the account of Monica Bose on her holidays in Tiruvannamalai, and how her house is located in the big street, very near to the temple, and how the prasannata of the gods, the darshan of the gods would be celebrated inside the temple with symbols and other things. That's the time when they manifest, and that's where we stop the account, we go on from there. The huge temple complex, covering about 10 hectares, was only one street away from us. Of its 3 enclosures, the innermost contained the small original 10th century temple, which was now the Holy of Holies. The temple complex had grown over the centuries, and the outermost enclosure, which had the highest gopurams or gate towers, had been added in the 16th and 17th centuries. Of these, it was the north-facing gopura which faced our house. Unlike the other gopuras, it did not carry the multitude of otherworldly beings that usually figure on those pyramidal edifices representing Mount Meru, the mythical mountain that rises from earth to heaven. Instead, this northern gopura displayed orderly rows of empty niches and miniature pavilions, heaven's empty mansions, so to speak. I do not know, says the author, I do not know whether the construction had been halted due to war or the failing finances of kings, but the empty spaces seemed to state that even when there are no visible forms, the principles of order and organization that underlie the order and make their appearance possible are always present in the cosmos. I'll read that again. From architecture, she moves on to something spiritual about the whole of Pralaya, and even in Pralaya, how the seeds of the entire reconstruction, recreation is already present. I do not know whether the construction had been halted due to war or the failing finances of kings, but the empty spaces seem to state that even when there are no visible forms, the principles of order and organization that underlie them and make their appearance, the appearance of forms possible, are always present in the cosmos. A Dravidian gopura rises tier upon tier, like the different stages of spiritual practice. The gods and goddesses they carry, each tier carries, representing the powers and qualities attained at each stage of practice. Above the last tier, there is the Vimana, a curious tubular structure carved to resemble the bamboo roof of the antique predecessor of the temple, the shed of initiation where man met God. Apparently, it is simply to preserve the memory of the place of the highest meeting that the Vimana has been raised to the elevated position, since it serves no other purpose in the gopura. Surmounting the roof of the Vimana on either side are great solar faces of glory or lion faces. The sight of those solar signs, high in the sun of realization shining in the sky of the mind. How from architecture she moves on to Atma. The sun of realization shining in the sky of the mind, which is how he described the state of consciousness attained at the summit of one's spiritual ascent. Of course, she had mentioned earlier that each tier is a tier of ascent in spirituality, also the highest Vimana representing the summit of the spiritual journey. And that's why she recalls Bhagavan's words that those sun signs on either side, that of Prabhe or the lion faces, they indicate the sun of realization shining in the sky of mind. Bhagavan, of course, says every object that you see should remind you of God. But this definitely helps that when they connect the objects they see to something as innermost realization as this. The hill Arunachala towered above both the city and the temple. Our house at the upper end of Big Street was very close, and we were familiar with Arunachala's appearance at every moment of the day and in every season of the year. We went to sleep in its deep protective presence. We woke to see it in the lustural morning air, when it glowed red, like the dawn Aruna, which is its name. By midday, as the sun reached its zenith, the hill became dazzlingly white in intense heat, unbearable to look upon with the naked eye. During the rains, its sides flowed with copious streams like grace. On some monsoon nights, I have seen the hill stand thrillingly tall, withdrawn and mysterious, behind a great swirling mantle of white mist, hemmed with pale opals by the lights of the passing traffic. The hill was at its most dramatic on the last night of the 10-day Kartikeya celebrations, which fell at the conjunction of the Pleiades with the full moon, between mid-November and mid-December. For on that night, the Kartikeya night, there took place the annual festival of light that centered on the hill as the Tejo Linga, the blazing mark of truth absolute. At sunset, priests climbed up the mountain path bearing sacred fire taken from each of the temple shrines for lighting the hilltop flame. The long file of priestly fire bearers, followed by torch-bearing worshippers, made a coiling garland of fire for the hill. You can imagine a coiling garland of fire for the hill in that evening. At that exact moment, when the sun disappeared in the west and the moon appeared in the east, the priests ignited the butter, oil, and ghee kept in the crater at the summit. The flames soared into the night sky, and for many kilometers around Arunachala could be seen standing as the fire of Shiva. People reverenced it and worshipped it in their homes, in temples, and at the ashram, where the moment it was seen, the continuous light or Akhanda Jyoti was lit facing the Maharishi. Then the priests performed Arati, the waved offering of the fire, which ended with the lighting of the camphor flame. The devotees pressed forward, holding their hands out towards it, no doubt praying to be blessed or to become pure and ardent like the flame. The flame, she says, is very ardent in its quality. In ancient Vedic ritual, the officiating priest symbolically took the sacred fire into himself and externalized it at the next ceremony, so that there would never be any discontinuity of the fire. The rituals have their place in spiritual life, and the Maharishi was always very reverent when they were performed. But he taught us that becoming one with the flame was by incessant and arduous effort to uncover the fundamental I am deep in our soul from beneath all the superfluous and extraneous thoughts that hide it from our sight. I'll read that again. She has beautifully recounted the rituals involved and the significance, but here she's coming to the heart of it all. Rituals have their place in spiritual life, and the Maharishi was always very reverent when they were performed. But he taught us that becoming one with the flame was by incessant and arduous effort to uncover the fundamental I am deep in our soul from beneath all the superfluous and extraneous thoughts that hide it from our sight. On one festival of light, he remarked, "It is the self shining through which is the real continuous light." All these are symbols, but what is the real continuous light? What is the real continuous existence? It is the self shining through which is the real continuous light. During worship, he would sit mostly in silence, beautiful to see in his self-knowledge. The look with which we were all familiar is spoken in a verse of Chandogya Upanishad. It says, and the light that shines beyond, and that light that shines beyond which there is none higher, that light is the same as the light in the heart of man. Beautiful to see and of great renown is he who knows this, who knows this. Chandogya Upanishad says, and the light that shines beyond which there is none higher, that light is the same as the light in the heart of man. Beautiful to see and of great renown is he who knows this, who knows this. The most important part of the day for us was naturally the time we spent with the Maharishi at the ashram. That was sometimes in the morning, but more often in the late afternoon because of Suzanne's work. Suzanne, of course, is a mother who is a doctor practicing in Revathi. We like to go there about 5 o'clock so as to be on the Maharishi's path. When he came down the hill, after the 20-minute break that preceded the recitation of Vedas. Before Veda Parayana, there was a 20-minute break in which Bhagavan would go up the hill, and what she's saying is, many devotees would wait when he comes down the hill to have this darshan. Those who lined this path were able to enjoy an intimate moment with him, often rewarded for their waiting with a look, a smile, or a few words. It was while she was there that he asked an American visitor, Mrs. Pauline Noy, do you have more peace now? She replied with a thankful yes. She had arrived in Tiruvannamalai some days earlier in anguish and mental torment. But since her first meeting with the Maharishi had started to feel calmer, so that the previous night she had been able to sleep well for the first time in weeks. On her return to America, she would write about her experience in an article commenting, the inner peace which is his is radiating to all of us. The inner peace which is his is radiating to all of us. Quite often, the Maharishi would stop in the little ashram garden to spend a few minutes with the animals there. He would feed and talk to the white peacocks which somebody had donated to the ashram, or would watch the squirrels and bandicoots at play. He had a great fondness and respect for animals, feelings which they fully reciprocated. One of the early devotees wrote that he treated animals as if they were fellow ascetics, different only in having to work out their karma in animal bodies. I can relate an amusing anecdote about Lakshmi, the ashram cow. One evening, when we had arrived at the ashram late and the Maharishi and the devotees had already taken their place in the hall, Jean, her grandmother, who was walking briskly ahead of Suzanne and myself, felt herself being firmly pushed out of the way from behind. She turned around indignantly to find herself face to face with Lakshmi, who was also in a hurry to reach Maharishi. Her shed was quite a distance away, but frequently she would come all the way to see him. She would go up the steps to the hall, tread carefully on the kadapa tiles worn smooth and slippery by the feet of the devotees, come up to the couch where the Maharishi was sitting and lower her head to receive his caress or place her head at his feet. Then she would turn and with dignity, like an elderly devotee, make her way out. In the hall, I would observe what was going on. Many sat with their eyes closed in meditation. But I did not meditate since I did not know how. Mostly, I would just concentrate my thoughts on making my mind a fit vessel for the Maharishi's power and grace. I never felt left out. I knew that the Maharishi was there for me too, at my level. Not everybody who meditated knew how to do it properly. One devotee was afflicted with a nervous tick on the left side of his face while meditating. Another bent over backwards more and more as he went into a trance. The Maharishi would advise them and help them to correct their faults. Nor, as I learned, did meditation always give the right results. Once, a devotee returned from his village, excited by the news that a man there, who had been practicing for years, had acquired supernatural powers, and found that now he had only to raise his arm to project a beam of light. The Maharishi commented, what a waste of time his years of meditation had been, if that was all he had been achieved. Paramahamsa is of course known to have said to somebody who had learned to walk on the Ganges that he gives him some 10 annas or something and says, this is what your 20 years is worth. And the person asks, what, I can walk on water and you are saying it is worth only 10 annas? Then Paramahamsa says, if I pay that to the boatman, he will carry me across. Why have you wasted your time on this for 10 years? Similarly, Bhagavan says, you could have probably got a torchlight. Why waste sadhana to project a beam out of your hand? Sometimes, devotees in the hall sang some sacred verses or recited a passage from the scriptures. If they made a mistake, the Maharishi would gently correct them. He had a remarkable knowledge of the scriptures, both as to content and meaning, owing to the many passages he had been asked to translate or explain by attendants or devotees. He had picked up a number of languages in the same way and could compose verse in the appropriate meter in Tamil, Telugu, Sanskrit and Malayalam. The years he had spent in silence and samadhi had not impaired his intellect in any way. In fact, they seemed to have enhanced it. It was in 1943, to the best of my recollection, that a young European woman came to visit the ashram. Since she was spending Christmas in Tiruvannamalai that year, my mother invited some of the ashramites, including this young woman, home for a meal. While she was with us, I noticed a strange look in her eyes. Nothing in her behavior, however, gave us any indication of what was to follow. When she got back to her small cottage near the ashram, she found that all her belongings had been stolen. Theft in those parts was not infrequent, since the surrounding population was very poor. The shock she got when she found all her things had gone seriously disturbed the balance of her mind. And we heard the next day that she had been lying naked and unconscious in the ditch that ran along the temple wall. She was taken to the hospital in Vellore for treatment. I saw her again at the ashram a year or two later, and she looked a different person. I think that Maharishi's instruction on how to abide in the still center of oneself, away from the turmoil of thought and emotion, must have helped her, as it did many others. Irrespective of how much you lose, how much imbalance you get in the mind, if you are in the Bhagavan's net of grace, it will always come out all right. His grace will clear all our prarabdha, whatever depth it may have. Once there was something of a scandal at the ashram. When it became known that a middle-aged devotee had been found in a field alone with a 6-year-old girl, her mother confided to Susan, the doctor, that fortunately the little girl had not been harmed in any way. The erring devotee was taken to the Maharishi, who talked to him in private. I do not know what the Maharishi said, but I know that according to his teaching, sin, being an unruly impulse of the ego, is fundamentally ignorance of oneself. And for ignorance, there is the cure of self-enquiry. For ignorance, the punishment, the treatment is giving awareness. As the Maharishi says in Puja, however sinful a person may be, if he would stop wailing inconsolably, alas, I am a sinner, how am I going to attain liberation? and casting away even we thought that he is a sinner. If he would zealously carry on meditation on the self, he would most assuredly get reformed, which undoubtedly is what happened in the case of this devotee, for he eventually became a valued member of the ashram community. It doesn't matter what the past has been. It doesn't matter where we find ourselves now. What we have to do is just let go of that and ask, for whom is this thought? Who am I? I remember an ascetic who used to come and visit the Maharshi occasionally. He would prostrate full length before the Maharshi with great ardor. And the Maharshi would sometimes glance with some tenderness at him. But once, when the ascetic rose from his salutation, I saw something new, like a flash of joyful understanding pass between them. I did not know what it meant, but I have since come to believe that it was the renunciate's recognition of the unlimited freedom enjoyed by the Maharishi and the Maharishi's acknowledgement of it. There he was, a virtual prisoner of the couch, on which he stayed in public view all day, and sometimes on festivals, part of the night also, a prisoner of his extended family, by then numbering thousands worldwide, who asked him for salvation, guidance, peace, help, comfort, strength, grace, and so on. A prisoner too of the ashram's management rules and control, which for reasons of safety controlled everything that went on, even which visitors were allowed to come to him. Even which visitors were allowed to come to him was controlled. Yet he was free, gloriously free, because as he once affirmed, he lived in the ultimate truth, which was all that he had and all that he wanted. There he was, a virtual prisoner of the couch, yet he was free, gloriously free, because as he himself once affirmed, he lived in the ultimate truth, which was all that he had. He had nothing else other than the ultimate truth, and it was all that he wanted. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramananjali.
Namo Ramana. We now have the self-enquiry session guided by Dileep Simha.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Jayet Sarada Chandra Sundaramukam Tambraravindekshana Bhaktabhishta Parabhayapradakaram Kaupinamatrochvalam Swatmanandarasanubhuti vivasham Sarvanavatyangakam Shrimantam Shri Ramaneshwaram Guruvaram Yogasanadhyasitam Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram. We'll commence today's Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. I'll be reading from Guru Vachaka Kovai from the chapter Meditation on the Truth. The topic blessed by Master is Upasana, worship. Verse 512. Divine grace is the truth, the light of consciousness that clarifies, destroying ignorance. If devotion, genuine love is firmly established towards the feet of Shiva, then through the support of that divine grace, the non-dual gnana that ordinarily is extremely hard to attain will become easily attainable. I repeat, divine grace is the truth, the light of consciousness that clarifies, destroying ignorance. If devotion, genuine love, is firmly established towards the feet of Shiva, then through the support of that divine grace, the non-dual gnana that ordinarily is extremely hard to attain will become easily attainable. Bhagavan says, self-realization, which appears very difficult, will be attained very easily through the power of grace. This is from Padamalai. Bhagavan has given the two paths to that self-realization, which appears very difficult. One is the Atma Vichara, the self-enquiry, wherein every thought, no matter how many number of thoughts that rises within oneself, one diligently inquires to whom is this, recognizes it is for oneself, and thereupon inquires, who am I? Who am I? What do I refer to as I? Or where from this thought I rises within me? That being one path. The other one being surrender to the Guru, to the God, to the Self, which is one and the same. But in either of the case, it is only the grace that makes us, brings about the clarification, destroys all the ignorant ideas and concepts that one is holding on to. That love, that genuine love to that Guru, that his path is enough to kindle that grace. Or in fact, we do that, we tread that path only because of that divine grace, due to which this non-dual gnana, which is extremely hard to attain, becomes attainable. Both the Atma Vichara and the surrender is one and the same. It is one's own surrender of all the ignorant ideas to that divine grace which alone is. The immense grace of that divine grace, for the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We now have a sharing by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande on Bhagavan Ramana's selection from the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita Sara.
Oh. Vasudeva Satam Devam Kanchanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Oh. Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasadrasham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmi Kantam Kamalanayanam Yogiradhyanagamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavabhayaharam Sarvalokaikanaatham. Oh. We're doing Manana on the Bhagavad Gita Sara. Last week we touched upon the verse 31, where Bhagavan said, in respect of those devotees who worship me and think of me single-mindedly, for those persons who are constantly united with me, I personally fulfill their personal needs and welfare. So today we will do Manana on the verse number 32, and I request Sapna to kindly chant the verses.
Yes, sir. अथ श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता सारः तेषां ज्ञानि नित्ययुक्तः एकभक्तिर्विशिष्यते प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनोत्यर्थम् अहं स च मम प्रियः तेषां ज्ञानि नित्ययुक्तः एकभक्तिर्विशिष्यते प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनोत्यर्थम् अहं स च मम प्रियः. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. Out of the four categories of devotees, bhaktas, the man of knowledge, jnani, who's ever united with me and has an exclusive, single-pointed devotion towards me, the Supreme Lord, is highly distinguished. I, the Supreme Lord, am extremely dear to the jnani, and he is also extremely dear to me. The Lord has categorized his bhaktas, devotees, into four categories. The afflicted, the tired of the miseries of the world. Number two, the person with a mind of inquiry, a scientist, who wants to know the ultimate truth. Third is the seeker after worldly possessions, wealth, promotion, etc. And lastly, a man of knowledge. There are four types of, one is who's really tired of the miseries of the world, somebody else whose mind of inquiry, like a scientist. Thirdly, a person with worldly possessions, who's got a lot of wealth, promotion. And then finally, a man of knowledge. Then a question may arise as to who among them can be considered as the most beloved of the Lord. So far as the jnani is concerned, as he remains as the Supreme Self Paramatma, naturally he is at the top. So, important thing, if you're a teacher and you have a lot of students, the student who makes the maximum effort is actually most liked by the teacher.
that student is most liked by the teacher. There is no jnana as it is commonly understood. The ordinary ideas of jnana and ajnana are only relative and false. They are not real and therefore not abiding. The true state is the non-dual self. It is eternal and abides whether one is aware or not. This is in the talk number 499. In other words, Jnani's name is included in the category of bhaktas to make the common ignorant people understand. Otherwise, Jnani is himself the absolute self or supreme being, and it is not correct to categorize him as a bhakta. Being the absolute self, the question of his being dear to the self also does not arise. The language of this verse is the language of ignorance to enable a layman to understand. So what is being beautifully said is here is this verse is because we are ignorant, that's why this verse is there. But for a person who is a jnani, who is in the self, he is actually the supreme being. So a wise devotee has gone through a lot of ups and downs in life like anyone else. But he has taken the time to accurately analyze his situation. He has come to the conclusion that no matter what he gains, a new job, a new house, investments, and so on, he's still left with a sense of incompleteness. Unlike the other three types of devotees that seek something finite, he wants to go beyond finite things. In other words, he is seeking infinitude. Having come to this conclusion, his search has culminated in Ishvara. He intuitively knows that it is Ishvara that is going to give him final infinitude. He then takes to the path of spirituality from the very early stage, doing karma yoga for purification of mind, followed by meditation for single pointedness of mind, hoping eventually to culminate in the attainment of the infinite Ishvara. So, free from all contaminations of material desires, the distressed, the inquisitive, the penniless, and the seeker after supreme knowledge can all become pure devotees. But out of them, he who is in the knowledge of the absolute self and free from all material desires becomes a real pure devotee of the Lord. And of the four orders, the devotee who is in full knowledge and it is at the same time engaged in devotional service is, the Lord says, the best. So if you want to impress the Lord, this is what really you need to do. But out of them, he who is knowledgeable of the absolute truth and free from all material desires becomes a really pure devotee of the Lord. And of the four orders, the devotee who is in full knowledge and is at the same time engaged in devotional service is the Lord says, the best. By searching after knowledge, one realizes that his self is different from his material body, and when further advanced, he comes to the knowledge of impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. So this is the inward journey where you realize that you are not this material body, and further on we come to the knowledge of impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. When one is fully purified, he realizes that his constitutional position is to be the eternal servant of God. But in the preparatory stage, the man who is in full knowledge of the Supreme Lord and is at the same time executing devotional service is very dear to the Lord. So we must understand that what God loves the most. These are the things that God loves the most. He who is situated in pure knowledge of the transcendence of the Supreme Personality of God is so protected in devotional service that material contaminations cannot touch him. So it's like I remember Swami Shantanand Puri gave me one example that if you chant Mahamrityunjaya mantra 11 times, it's like a kavacha. For at least 4 to 6 hours, it's like a kavacha on you. Nothing wrong can happen. So similarly, here is being said, he who is situated in pure knowledge of the transcendence of the Supreme Personality of God is so protected in devotional service that material contaminations cannot touch him. So he really is so much within. See, God, what God does, he pushes you from outside inward, inside, and then he pulls you from inside. He's continuously doing that. He's saying, don't look at all these material things. It's not going to give you any joy. And he's pushing us inwards, and from inside he's pulling us. But still we keep going out. We say, oh, this. So Bhagavan says that if you keep on doing this, then this bahirmukha, this outwardness will stop once and for all. So you'll stop going outside and you will continuously be in the self. Because where is the self? The self is within. So there is no different. There is no. We always say that God is somewhere else, but God is within. There is no distance between you and God, between you and yourself. There is no difference. There is no distance, and actually there is no difference also, because you are the Tattvamasi, you are that. But we think everything is outside. So this is a very important shloka. One is to understand what are the characteristics that God would love to have in his bhakta. He would love to have a devotee who is in knowledge, who understands him and is always single-pointedly in God. And if you're constantly abiding in God, such a devotee is loved by the Lord. It's not that the other type of bhaktas are not loved, but here the Lord is so. It's like different types of devotees came to Bhagwan also. There were some people who were afflicted by some issues, and there were people like Ganapati Mani who also came to Ganapati Mani Muruganar, who came to Bhagwan. Now he, according to their to the requirements, gave them Upadesha. So it's not that Bhagwan used to say that it's not that they are coming to see me, but I am sitting here to have darshan of them, because he saw God in everything. He saw the self in everything. So all of us have to drop the differences between us and somebody else. We should be able to see the same self in everybody. When we are able to see the same self in everybody, we'll be abiding in the self. By Bhagwan's grace, may we all abide in the self at this very moment. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Thank you.
Namo Ramana. We now have the sharing by Dr.Kala Rengasamy. She has sent us her sharing today, and this is because she is simultaneously conducting a festival on behalf of our sister organization, Bhagavan Sri Ramananjali Research Center. The Nandakumar festival in Madurai has been happening concurrently with our Satsang. Yet Dr. Kalarani has sent us a sharing so that we do not miss the sharing in this Satsang. I request Revathi to present Dr. Kalarani's sharing.
நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீ ரமணாய அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வேறறுப்பாய் Dr.Kala. Namo Ramana to all. With the abundance grace of Bhagavan, we are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam given to us by Ramana. In the last satsang we learned Mamadai Indri Karunai Manni பூதங்கள் எல்லாமே அபயம் தந்து முமுக்ஷுவாய் யோகத்தில் தற்பரனாய் ஓதி காலோத்தரத்தின் ஏக வழி நிற்க. When there is no mamahara, karuna will fill its place. When a person is full of kindness, he will not make others afraid of him. Such is the state of a mumukshu. So, to attain that state, Parameshwara says, O Parvati Devi, follow what is said in Devi Kalotram and stand firmly in that path. Bhagavan in the next stanza says, Mandi Ural Vayu Samam Chitta. Here, Bhagavan gives the description of the mind. Through Indriyas, it has the habit of going outside, always. Bhagavan says it is like storm, Suravali. And the storm or Suravali does not stick on to any particular direction. It is very difficult to predict how does it blow. It is the state of mind. At one particular time, the mind thinks something, and at the other time, it thinks exactly the opposite. Now, if the mind thinks that a particular person is very good, after 10 minutes, the mind started thinking, oh, he's not that much worth. He's a very selfish person. We may enter a hotel with our friend to just give her a company because we might have had a very heavy lunch. So we have decided to eat only 2 idlis. After going there, we will have a big survey of the other tables to see what other people are having. Mostly in Madurai, people won't order after seeing the menu card. They will decide by looking at others' table only. Following this beautiful heritage, we also look into the table next to us, and that person might be having a chola puri. And we also get tempted and order chola puri instead of idlis. So, mind changes always. Thai Manavar, a great poet saint, he says, Manam ana vanara kai malai ahamal, yene aal adigal adi eiril naal elnalo. He says, see, my mind is like the garland, in the hands of a monkey. When a monkey holds the garland, what happens? It will not keep quiet. It will make the garland into pieces. My mind is also like that. With so many thoughts, it is like a storm. Hey Ishvara, when will the day come when my mind will be calm? Asks Thai Manavar to Ishvara. In practical life, if we observe also, the mind is like that only. I'll tell you another example. One day, a person asks his driver to come sharply at 9 in the morning because he has to catch a flight. For some reason or the other, the driver comes late by half an hour. He was so angry but could not show this anger to him because he has to travel in the car along with him. Halfway to the airport, the tire got burst. So the car stopped. The storm started blowing into the mind of this person. But he said very calmly, it's okay, pa. Change the tire, change the stepney. The driver said, no. Sir, only last week I gave the stepney to the workshop for repair. And I forgot to collect it. This person's BP rise to the highest. And was standing on the roadside looking for another vehicle. At that time, his friend came in a two-wheeler and he gave him the lift to the airport. Now his mind prized his friend. Oh, how great this person is. He came at the right time like a god. And he helped me to put me into the plane at the right time. and he was scolding his driver with harsh words. What an idiotic person this driver is. We have to change him when I return home. After all halla-balla of the mind, he came to a normalcy and he was very quiet. The plane also took off, and after 10 minutes, a sweet voice was heard. And the voice said, "Dear passengers, there is nothing to get panic. This fellow's mind got blowing. What? No need to get panic. Then there is something is there. Something wrong is happening." The voice continued, "There is a small hole in the flight, so the air is gushing in. We have enough parachutes and we can evacuate you through the parachutes. No worries, we have 5 parachutes. And passengers are 135 people are sitting in the flight." And this fellow again started scolding his friend who was shown as God a few minutes earlier. Now the driver became God. He thought the driver, by coming late, indicated me that I should not go in this flight. Only my stupid friend, that fellow, dropped me at the airport at the right time and put me into this flight, which is going to get crashed in few minutes. See, in 2 hours time, the friend become God, driver becomes stupid. And again the friend becomes stupid and the driver become God. Such is the state of our mind. Mandi Ujwal Vayu Samam Chitta. It is like a strong storm, Suravali. It is it possible to control this windstorm of mind? Is it possible to make the mind calm? If controlled, how will we be? If controlled, how will we be? We will see in the next Satsang. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramananjali.
Namo Ramana. We now have the sharing by Sri Ujwal Jagadeesh on Ganapati Muni's Ramana Chatvarimshat.
Namo Ramana. We are meditating on the Ganapati Muni's Ramana Chatvarimshat, compiled in that format by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi himself. We are on the verse 9 of Ramana Chatvarimshat, which is set to Raga Neelambari. Ramanena sanatamidam bhuvanam, Ramanena sanatamidam bhuvanam, Ramanena sanatamidam bhuvanam, Ramanena sanatamidam bhuvanam, Bhagavat padamanya janasulabam swagudairadhigatya param jayata mamatarahitena hitena sata nihitena gana prabhuna hridaye mamatarahitena hitena sata nihitena gana prabhuna hridaye Ramananinda patiya padedihudi bhuvana, Ramananinda patiya padedihudi bhuvana, Bhagavat lele anya janarige durlabha, tana guna mahimeinda paramapada ಗೆದ್ದವ ಮಮಕಾರ ರಹಿತನು ಹಿತನು ಸಜ್ಜನರಿಗೆ ಗಣಪತಿ ಹೃದಯದಿ ರಾರಾಜಿಪನಿಗೆ. Ganapati Muni is singing the glory of Ramana, that Ramana has won this state of being Bhagavan, Bhagavat Nele. He has attained, which is very, very difficult for others, a normal human being to attain. That state he has attained with his own virtue. And what is that virtue which Ramana had, that he could attain that supreme state? Ramana says it is not a secret, and it makes this secret of being God revealed to everyone. He says, Isha Jivayor Vesha Dibida Satsvabhavato Vastu Kevalam. That we both, the Ishvara and Jiva, I and the Ishvara are the same in essence. But what is the thing which makes us difference is this Vesha and our the intellect, and this Vesha that the false notion that we are this body, that image is the one which separates us from the divinity. If one is ready to drop this false notion, then one will realize that he is also that very divine being, that Bhagavat Nele one can attain by this virtue of dropping the false identity, thinking that we are this body and the mind complex. And Bhagavan is the one, the devotees relate to Ramana as Bhagavan because he is the one who does these great miracles in the life. And the devotees have reported, there is books published by Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, that the miracles of Bhagavan Ramana happen every day. And it happens so naturally that nobody others do not understand this great miracle that is happening. But still there are some very, very peculiar and special instances where Bhagavan has revealed his divinity, his divine powers, and revealed that he is God. This when Kirai Pati, who used to serve Bhagavan Ramana when he was on the Virupaksha cave, and every day Kirai Pati used to prepare special dishes with the greens that was available in the Arunachala, and every day she used to prepare this tasty greens, the Kirai, and she used to serve Bhagavan, and every time she used to say, this Kirai is very good for eyes, and this Kirai is very good for the bowel movement, and this is that, and these special Kirais have divine powers. It can make one be without food for many, many days. It satiates one hunger for a long time. And the other greens, it can make one disappear, just like Siddhas. So she used to explain the speciality of these greens and serve Bhagavan Ramana. And one night when Kirai Pati was at her house, which was on the slope of Arunachala, she heard the sound of a robber. So immediately she called out to Annamalai, Annamalai, she screamed, and Bhagavan, he was staying in Virupaksha cave. Within few seconds, he was there. And then when he put the lantern light and they saw that the robber had ran away, realizing that Bhagavan had come to rescue Kirai Pati, and they could see that all the vessels were shaking a little bit when the robber had ran away, and Bhagavan realized somebody had come and they have not harmed Kirai Pati and she is safe. And Kirai Pati understood this glory of Ramana, who is Annamalai himself, who had come to rescue miraculously from the clutches of the robbers. And there is one more beautiful instance of Bhagavan revealing his divinity. There was this shepherd group, a group of shepherds who used to graze their sheep on the slopes of Arunachala. And one day, when a little girl was making her sheep graze in the grasses on the Arunachala, a little small baby sheep, it fell inside a ditch which was very, very steep, and it was crying from inside the pit. and nobody could rescue. And all her friends told, oh, it has fallen down in this deep pit. No human being can reach to the bottom of this pit. If somebody goes inside, even they will lose their lives. Nobody can go. Don't waste your time. Come, let's all go. We will leave the sheep, the little baby sheep, to die there itself in the pit. So saying, everybody persuaded her to go back home, but that little shepherd girl could not bear. She could not bear that this little calf, the little sheep, which was fallen into the pit, was crying, and she could not bear the sight, and she was crying and praying so that somebody could come and help. And miraculously, Ramana came to that scene and asked, what happened? Oh, he got to know the situation, and in a trice he jumped into the pit, and within no time he brought that little sheep on his back, and the sheep was rescued. And the girl realized, they told that no human can go inside this pit and get this sheep, but Bhagavan is no human. He is Bhagavan himself. He does not belong to this loka, this state of this loka. He is from a greater plane who has come to save us. So she realized. And in the Bible it is told that good shepherd, the divine, the Jesus Christ, or the God, is compared to a good shepherd. A good shepherd is the one, not so good shepherd is the one when wild animals are attacking the sheep, the not so good shepherd would run away for his own life. But a good shepherd is the one who knows each and every sheep by its name. Each and every sheep he protects. And when a wild animal, when a danger comes, he is the first one to save them. He is the one who is saving them. And Ramana is the one who, for those who have fallen into the deep pit of ignorance, he is the one who has come to rescue us. He is the Bhagavan who has come to rescue us. And we know the story of Ganapati Muni. Ganapati Hridayadi Tarajipanu. He is the one who is shining in the heart of Ganapati Muni. When Ganapati Muni felt that he had done all that had to be done. He had done crores and crores of japa. He had read all the Vedas, Shastras. He had done japa. He had done dhyana. He had done every ritual that was prescribed in the scriptures. Yet he found himself at the deep pit of ignorance. And then he thought that there is some lacuna in his sadhana. There is some mistake that he's doing in his tapas. And when he wanted guidance in his heart, Ramana shined, and Ramana was called Brahmana Swami. Ganapati Muni realized, yes, that Brahmana Swami whom I saw on the slopes of Arunachala, he alone is my Sadguru, and he alone can show me the right path and save me from this darkness of ignorance. That thought, the shining thought of Ramana appeared in the heart of Ganapati Muni, and he ran and came and surrendered to Bhagavan Ramana and got his first Upadesha to get back to the self and abide in it. With the grace of Bhagavan Ramana, let us all get back to that self and abide in it. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of that self manifest as Ramana, we have been blessed to meditate on the Ashtottara Shatanama, the 108 names, the litany on Bhagavan, composed by Vishwanatha Swami. And we have been taken through the context of his birth as to the divine nature of his advent, he being Mahasena, and then we were told about the place of his birth, Bhuminatasthala, the Kula, the lineage in which he became manifest, the Parashara Kula, and about the greatness of his father, Sundaram Iyer. Sundararya Tapaphalaya Namaha. So we saw a few incidents in the life of Sundaram Iyer, where even the robbers venerated him, respected him, and how he was aware or sensitive to the manner in which each and every person should be treated. He was aware of what Tyagaraja Swami describes in Sri Ramachandra Murti as Inkitam Ari, the one who knows the Inkitam. So the Inkitam, he knew the exact, Sundaram Iyer knew how one should be with each and every person. This was spontaneous, and this must be because of his tapas, the tapas of pure goodness, and the fruit of that pure goodness of Sundaram Iyer was Bhagavan himself. And here Vishwanatha Swami includes Mother Alagamma in Sundaram Iyer, because everything that Sundaram Iyer did, Alagamma was a integral part of it. She is actually called the Ardhangi. Not only that, Parvati is half of Shiva. In India, we have this very typical English phrase, which is not an English phrase, wherein the wife is referred to as the better half. This comes, I think, from the tradition of Ardhangi. Ardhangi is half of the person, which is Ardhanarishwara, and the wife is the half. She is an integral part of the dharma of every householder. Therefore, when Vishwanatha Swami says Sundararya Tapaphalaya Namaha, he is indicating that Alagamma and Sundaram Iyer's penance has borne fruit as Ramana. That's why we saw Sadhu Om Swami's song where he says, Arutihal Sundarar Alagammai Tava Valvu Virikshamadil Kaninda Selvame Talelo. So he is that fruit. And we see Alagamma that if Sundaram Iyer kept his house open 24/7, that's the phrase which we use now, and that phrase was not announced by Sundaram Iyer. I keep my house open 24/7, but it was open. It is said that Sundaram Iyer, when he built his house, he built it in two parts. One part was for himself and his family, and one part was for the use of the general people. Anyone who would come to Tiruchuri, anyone who needed a place to stay in Tiruchuri, the Dharma Chatram was Sundaram Iyer's house, and did not stop with being a place for them to stay. It was a place for them to have their food, to refresh themselves. And it is said that the kitchen fire in Sundara Mandiram was burning 24/7. All the time, the visitors would get food from the hearth of Alagamma. She would cook for them and she would feed them. And it is no wonder that this tapapala continued as Bhagavan, who not only feeds every comer to Sri Ramanashramam. Until recently the situation changed, but there was food if the devotees came, somehow or the other food would be provided. Simple food sometimes during the difficult years of Ramanashram, but food was there. When Bhagavan was on the hill, whatever food he got, he would share it equally with all the devotees. And after Aragamma went and started staying with Bhagavan, especially at Skandashrama, she started cooking for all the devotees over there. So there was food. And of course, Bhagavan gives us the real food that sustains us, the food of Atma Jnana. We who are hungry, we who are thirsty, he gives us food and water, the water of life. Sadhu Vaswani, J.P. Vaswani, when he came to speak at the first international seminar, he gave the instance of Bhagavan giving water to the thirsty grass cutter women. And he said, they would come and call out, Sami, Sami, give us water. And he would draw water from the well at Mulaipal Tirtham, and he would pour it for them to drink, and he would pour it on their backs, burning in the heat, in the summer heat. And Vaswaniji continued, all of us are asking him, Sami, Sami, give us the water of life. And he is ready to pour it to us, to quench our thirst for self-knowledge, because his parents had quenched thirst and hunger continuously. They had quenched the thirst of the people. They had quenched the hunger of the people. And together they were in dharma. In fact, the wife is called Ardhangi. She is also called the Dharma Patni. She's called the Dharma Patni. In the Indian tradition, in the Sanatana Dharma, the man cannot give away anything, gift something, unless along with his wife and his wife's support he gives. In fact, Bhagavan has said in the Ramana Gita, he has explained how the householder's dharma is to support through charity all the other three ashramas, because the brahmachari cannot support himself or others. So also it is with the vanaprastha or the sannyasi. Therefore, the purpose of the householder is to do dharma. It is the tapas, and that tapas was performed by Sundaram Iyer in full, and to show that from dharma is born jnana. Professor Swaminathan would often say that if there is adharma, then jnana cannot be born over there. A person who is given to adharma cannot get into jnana except through surrender or through enquiry, as we heard in the reading today as well, and as we have seen in several other incidents with reference to Bhagavan, that all sin is washed away in that supreme dharma of self-abidance. And Bhagavan himself has described Sundaramaiah as a gentle person, as a kind person, and as a person who was righteous. And he was respected by one and all. And he had great love for Bhagavan, whom he recognized in a way was very unique. Though Sundaramaiah might not have expressed this, but he had a couple of insights into Bhagavan's great glory. And that is how Sundaramaiah led his life along with Aragamma. And in this tapas, the tapas of natural goodness, natural and sustained goodness, because it was natural. As Bhagavan says in Upadesa Saram, Ajyadharaya, like that the dhara, the sustained love of Sundaram Iyer, the spontaneous kindness of Sundaram Iyer towards one and all, which alone made him venerated by one and all, and his absolute humility, total unself-consciousness about his greatness, about his goodness, because it was natural and spontaneous. He never thought of himself as good or great, as we saw in another instance, where he did not even go and meet the Raja of Ramnad who was waiting for him. So in these numerous instances, not numerous, we have a few which are available to us, but they are enough to show us the greatness of Sundaram Iyer, and that greatness made Bhagavan choose Sundaram Iyer as his father. He chose that home, that Sundara Mandiram for his birth, that blessed Sundara Mandiram which is still there in Tiruchuri, and he allowed, Bhagavan allowed the ashram to acquire, through Niranjanananda Swami's efforts, to acquire the Sundara Mandiram, so that it is open to devotees till date as that sacred place which Sundaram Iyer first opened to all, and today it is open to the entire universe as the place of birth, of Bhagavan's birth, the place where the divine took the human form in order to guide the entire world out of darkness as the Guru. We prostrate to the parents of Bhagavan, Sundaram Iyer and Alagamma, for blessing us with this fruit of jnana which has come to us so beautifully and so lovingly through their tapas. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We continue the satsang with chanting of verses from Arunachala Aksharamanamalai by Radha and Vaibhav.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Sombiyai summa sukhamundurangidu solveren gati Arunachala. Sauriyam காட்டினை சழக்கற்றதென்றே சலியாதிருந்தாய் அருணாச்சலா. நிம்மருப்போ நீயும் மலர்ந்தில்லை என்றே நே நின்றனையன் அருணாச்சலா. தத்துவம் தெரியாதத்தனை ஊற்றாய் தத்துவம் இதுவென் அருணாச்சலா. நம்மலிய கேடா நான் என்னுறுதியால் நாடி நின்னுருவேன் அருணாச்சலா. ஞானமில்லாதுன் ஆசையற்றழவரன் ஞானம் தெரித்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. நிமிருப்போ நீயும் மலர்ந்தில்லை என்றே நே நின்றனையன் அருணாச்சலா. தத்துவம் தெரியாதத்தனை ஊற்றாய் தத்துவம் இதுவென் அருணாச்சலா. தானே தானே தத்துவமிதனை தானே காட்டுவாய் அருணாச்சலா. திரும்பி அகந்தனை தினமாக கண்காண் தெரியும் என்றென்னையன் அருணாச்சலா. தீரமில்லகத்தில் தேடி உந்தனையாம் திரும்ப உற்றேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலா. துப்பறிவில்லாய் பிறப்பெண் பயன் ஒப்பிடவாயே அருணாச்சலா. தூய்மன மொழிய தோயும் உன்மெய்யகம் தோயவே அருளென் அருணாச்சலா. தெய்வம் என்றுன்னை சாரவே என்னை சேர ஒழித்தாய் அருணாச்சலா. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, 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 Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachalam வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி.
Now, Ramana, before we go on to the Ashtottara Puja, I would like to announce that, as I said, our sister organization, Bhagavan Sri Ramananjali Research Center, is celebrating the Jnananjali festival, which it does every year, normally, beginning from July, in various places, Bengaluru, Chennai, and Madurai. And this year also, Bhagavan has allowed us to have the celebration in Bengaluru, today at Madurai, and in Chennai. But this year, we also have an online festival because Bhagavan has given us this new avenue of celebration. And the research center, Bhagavan Sri Ramananjali Research Center, will be collaborating with Ramananjali Center for Learning and having the online festival in Ramananjali Center for Learning's web channel, YouTube channel. And we will be bringing it to you from tomorrow for 4 days, the online festival of Jnananjali. Tomorrow is also the Paurnami celebration, and we welcome you all to that. In a couple of minutes, we will have the Ashtottara Puja to Bhagavan, and the puja will be performed by Ujwal Jagadeesh today here at the Ramananjali Meditation Hall, and it will be chanted by Vaibhavji and Prarthana and Uma and Ashwini, and we will conclude with the Arati sung by Revathi Shankar.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योऽमि मात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. ॐ महासेन महोंसेन जाताय नमः. ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः. ॐ गुरवे नमः. ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः. ॐ महौजसे नमः. ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः. ॐ जगद्वितावताराय नमः. ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोत्थिताय नमः. ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः. ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः. ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः. ॐ सहायाम्बासहायवते नमः. ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः. ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः. ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहासने लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः. ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः. ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः. ॐ तीव्राय नमः. ॐ ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डितानन्दमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूणिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजितचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ मीड्याय नमः। ॐ भूमविद्या विशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्री शोणाचलरुद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिहृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावलिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविदायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादकसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ हृच्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ षोडाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः कृन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संघिये नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೂಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಗಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।